Alrighty, yeah. Welcome everybody to our Preschool Promise request for application RFA webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started shortly, and we have quite a few people from across the state joining us. Super exciting. So just go ahead and give us a couple minutes here to let everyone in. And then Angela, let me know when you're ready to get started.
I'm ready when you are. It looks like everyone is in.
Awesome. Alrighty. Good afternoon. My name is Dana Young. I'm the Preschool Promise Program Manager here at the Division for Preschool Promise. I have a couple of colleagues here that work for the division and are focused with Preschool Promise. So we'll go ahead and do some brief introductions. Angela, go ahead.
Sure. My name is Angela Stinson. Welcome, everybody. I am the Preschool Promise Communication and Engagement Coordinator. Roman, you want to take it?
Hello, everybody. I'm Roman Kultaev, an Operations and Policy Analyst at Early Learning Division.
Meredith, do you want to go next?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Meredith Fleming. I am a grant manager at the Early Learning Division. Thank you.
And we have Brenda.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brenda Pearson, and I'm the Director of Procurement here at the Early Learning Division.
And we have Crystal Garcia.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Crystal Garcia. I am a program support specialist on the Preschool Promise team.
And Anthony.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Anthony Martirano, and I am on the grants team supporting Preschool Promise.
Any other Preschool Promise ELD staff that I missed? Okay. Well, we will jump right in. Thank you so much for joining. Here on our first page, we have the link where you'll find all the related Preschool Promise RFA information that we're going to cover today. So please, this is not your only source of information. We have it ready and available for you. Just really quickly, we'll go over our agenda so you know what to expect today. We will go through what Preschool Promise is, if you're not familiar, if you're new to the program, grant funding and allowable costs. Brenda will help us walk through the RFA process, and Roman will give us a quick overview of the Surveymonkey Applied platform that we're using for applications. Dana will cover evaluation points, including the quality scores and community needs scores, the award process, and the RFA schedule. And then we want to make sure we have some time for questions. We do ask, just because we have a large group, that you put any questions in the chat, and we will do our best to answer whatever we can today. And if not, the chat message is saved. This meeting is recorded. As I double check that it's recording. Yes. So this meeting is recorded. That means the chat session will be recorded. We'll be able to review any questions that we missed and provide answers according to the scheduled answer date on or close to July 11th, 2022. So what is Preschool Promise? If you're a brand new provider or you're thinking about applying to be a new provider, Preschool Promise offers free, high-quality preschool to Oregon families with incomes at or below 200% of the federal poverty level, or you'll hear us use the acronym FPL, or children in the foster care system. Preschool Promise serves children who are at least 3 years of age, but not older than 5 years of age, as determined by the date used to determine kindergarten eligibility. High quality, in Preschool Promise terms, we look at high quality as a program that demonstrates practices and values that support inclusion, cultural responsiveness, and programs that are developmentally appropriate for young children. And all Preschool Promise programs have a commitment to continuous quality improvement. Mixed delivery is a phrase you'll hear from us a lot. Mixed delivery is a recognition that quality programs can happen in a variety of settings. And for us, that includes school-based settings, certified childcare centers, and in-home childcare settings. And unlike some programs, we have a huge net that we cover as far as eligible entities to apply for Preschool Promise. And that includes certified childcare centers, certified family childcare providers, childcare resource and referral agencies, community-based organizations, culturally specific organizations, early learning hubs, education service districts or ESDs, federal Head Start programs, federally recognized Indian tribes in Oregon, Oregon pre-kindergarten grantees, private preschools, public charter schools, public schools, relief nurseries, and other childcare providers as defined in OAR 414-470-0005. So a long list of people that are eligible to apply. A couple things that would make you ineligible for the RFA, if the agency, so if you are a current provider and you are applying to expand your program, you would not be eligible if the agency, which is ELD, reduced your slot allocation this program year. So if you got a notice that we moved you from 20 slots to 10 slots this program year, you're not eligible to expand in the 2022-2023 Preschool Promise RFA. Additionally, if you were terminated for one reason or another as a grantee this program year, you would not be eligible to apply for the Preschool Promise RFA. Beyond that, if you're a new provider, if Office of Child Care has found that you have 2 serious non-compliance violations according to licensing regulation as defined by rule, or any site where Office of Child Care has imposed a civil penalty related to conduct related to that site, then you would not be eligible for this RFA. And we would encourage you to keep growing and keep working on your business and your program, and we'd be excited to see you another time, but you are not eligible in this program year. So a little bit about Preschool Promise program operations. Preschool Promise grantees must begin operating their Preschool Promise program classrooms no earlier than August 1st, 2022, and no later than October 30th, 2022. And they must end the program year no later than June 30th, 2023. Grantees must offer the Preschool Promise program for a minimum of 900 direct service hours per program year in a service delivery model that is no less than 6 hours per day. You need to restrict your scheduled operation between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. And you cannot operate fewer than 4 days a week. Below you'll see a quick at a glance of our grant. So the release date of the Preschool Promise RFA was June 21st. The program or the RFA will close on July 21st at 11:59 p.m. We are hoping and planning to open the program up to offer 2,516 additional Preschool Promise slots for children in Oregon. This is a program that's offered statewide, so regardless of which county you're currently residing in, we do operate statewide in Oregon. The Preschool Promise RFA is available in English and Spanish. You are welcome to submit the RFA fully in Spanish. We will have reviewers who can read and write and understand that language. The cost per child award for providers is $13,650 annually, with a $900 per child transportation enhancement for those that are offering transportation services. There are startup funds available for programs applying. If you have a new classroom, which we define as a classroom that's never been used for early learning services previously, we have $2,000 per slot additional startup costs available, and we have $1,000 per slot for programs expanding utilizing an existing classroom space. If you're a new applicant, so you're not a continuing provider or continuing a grantee applying to expand, if you're a new applicant, we do have minimum award allocations. So if you're a certified family provider, that minimum is 6 slots. If you're a registered family child care provider, the minimum you can apply for is 4 slots, and any other entity, the minimum is 10 slots. Here, you'll find this table in the Preschool Promise RFA covering allowable uses of Preschool Promise grant funding, including the standard funding and the startup funding that's available. So, we've had several folks in the past come up to us and say, if I could just buy a building and buy a bus to transport children, I could do this. And that's a fabulous goal. Unfortunately, it's not an allowable use of the Preschool Promise grant funding. So keep that in mind as you apply what that grant funding, what we're able to do with that grant funding. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Brenda for a review of the RFA process.
Thank you so much. Do you want me to pause for a moment so we can answer the questions in the chat, or would you like to answer those at the end?
Let's save it at the end, and we'll just take care of as many as we can before we close.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll discuss just the overarching process of this request for application. The process is outlined within the document itself, but I just wanted to take a moment and cover the basics. So you'll see the solicitation process reviewed in section 3. You'll note that the questions are open, or we're open for questions rather, until 5 p.m. on July 7th. At 5 p.m. on July 7th, we'll close that question period. And by close of business on July 11th, we'll have answers posted to all of the questions. On July 21st, this solicitation will close and we'll begin our evaluation process of all of the applications received. That evaluation process has 3 stages to it. The first stage is really something that we call reviewing for responsiveness and responsibility. So did we get the application on time? Was it complete? Is everyone able to actually apply? Because maybe, for instance, someone might be disqualified if they have an outstanding issue with the federal government through a disbarment process, which almost never happens, but we're required to do those checks. The next stage of the evaluation process is hosting evaluation committees. In this procurement, we have divided those out into 3 separate committees so that we're really comparing apples to apples. The committees are divided out by provider type, and then we'll score. The scoring process is in section 4 of the solicitation. So we'll score those evaluations. And then there's a final evaluation piece that Dana will talk about in a moment. And once we've completed all of the evaluation process, then we'll be able to tabulate all of the scores and make the final decisions, and then send out notice of intent to award letters. And those letters are anticipated to be sent out on or about August 24th. And then we'll enter into negotiations. And those typically look like us sending out a grant and saying, hey, by the way, here it is for your review and approval. If you're in agreement, please sign and send back to us. That's it.
Thanks, Brenda. And now Ramon is going to take us through an overview of the Surveymonkey Apply platform.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right, great. So we recommend to start the application process from our website, OregonEarlyLearning.com. Once you're on our website, please head to Programs and find Preschool Promise. On the Preschool Promise page, you will find information, all information, in fact, that you will need for this application process. And we definitely recommend to go through documents that are attached to this page. One of the helpful documents that you will find here would be the application itself. So not the application on the where you're going to be applying, but just to find what the application is going to look like, all of the pages, because the online application is only going to give you one page at a time. So you can click on the attachment B application, and it will take you to this document where you can see all of the questions that you will be asked and all the information that you will need to provide on one document. You can print it out and save for your records. Once you click on Apply Now, you will be taken to the SMI Apply portal, which we are using for the online application process. Many of you already started this process and you already have the applications in place. Many of you are registered with the portal because of the stabilization grants and previous emergency grants that we were using this portal for. If those of you who didn't have ever created an account on the smiapply.org, it's a very easy process. Very minimum information is required: your name, your email address. And one thing to note here is that the portal will send you notification to your email box to confirm your email account. And what we find very frequently is that if you have any of the Microsoft domain email addresses, Hotmail, Outlook, Microsoft.com, sometimes information from this portal will go, emails from this portal will go into your junk mail. So you have to maybe go in to your junk mail and say, this is not a junk, this is a good email. And once you verify, you will have access to this account. If you speak Spanish and you prefer to use Spanish language, we provide here Spanish translation. At the very top right corner, you can click and switch to Spanish language. You can see other programs that are available through the Department of Education currently. Here's a list of them, and at the end you will find Preschool Promise. And if you already started some applications, they will be under your My Applications link here. And it will look like this. In this case, I already started an application as a test, and that's what we're going to look today. This application consists of one task that you will need to complete. That's the only task. I will select it. You will see that here you have an option to add collaborator. Those of you who work at the large organizations, and maybe your application will require input from different people, from maybe finance officer, maybe a director of the childcare. It depends on who is going to be filling out which portion of the application. You can add them as collaborators here, and they will be able to log in and participate with you on filling out this application. Your task is going to be called RFA Preschool Promise Expansion. So you will click, that's the only task here. And this is where all the questions are going to be located. Because this is the only task, we are not going to utilize the function of submit, because we learned from stabilization grants and previous grants that people forget to hit submit button. As soon as you complete this task, your application will be submitted on your behalf. Here, it's fairly simple. It's generic information on section 1, applicant information. You'll go through that with information about the applicant, you as an applicant, not the childcare site at this point, because that information could be different. And some of the validations here are going to be prompt. Like, for example, if you made a mistake in the email address, the system will automatically notice that this is not a real email address and might give you an error. The portal, unfortunately, doesn't give us the ability to navigate from page to page, and the easy way to navigate. But here at the bottom, you can go to previous and next page to move between the pages. As soon as you move to the next page, the information is saved. So you can always come back to this anytime later, and the information will be saved there for you. Or you can click save and continue editing. That way, the information also can be saved. In the section 2, there's eligibility screening. That will basically very basic questions. where you select your type of type of applicant, and whether you have already available and suitable location for preschool services. If you say no, the form will not allow you to move on because it would say you are not eligible at this grant for this grant at the time. And if this is by mistake, you can clear this, so you can answer yes, and this will allow you to continue forward. We will move to the next page here. The next section 3 is quality evaluation. So there are going to be a lot of questions that I think total 16 questions where you would have to provide narrative input. Now this text will take as much space as you need to type. You can either type it elsewhere if you feel more comfortable typing it in Word or in other word editing program on your computer or anywhere else, and then just copy and paste it into here. That will work as well. Or you can just type it here. But if you're going to be typing it here, please don't forget to occasionally save and continue editing so you don't lose accidentally your work that you're typing. Once you're done typing here, we will ask you to advance to the next page. This is going to be similar, except for this section 10, where we have a table where you will be entering information about the staff at your organization. The fields are small, but if you're not limited by just 2 words, or we're trying to fit it into one page, so it's easy to see. But the information could be entered. Able to see it when you save or print the application. For now, we'll continue next page. Section 3 continues here with quality evaluation and financial controls and sustainability. Again, we're asking you to provide your narrative. We will move to the next page, and the section 4 is our last section. And here's the information about community needs evaluation and the site, your site or program information would go here. Now, we will frequently refer to attachment D and other documents of the RFA package. There is obviously a link provided here, or you can also find it on our website. All of these application attachments are here. In addition, you can just click here and it would also open that attachment. There's going to be additional table here where we're asking you to provide information about classrooms. Otherwise, everything is pretty self-explanatory, I think. When it comes to the primary language of instruction or languages of instruction, you are able to select multiple. We're asking you for a primary language. So, if your program is a dual program, then maybe scroll down and see that we're asking about dual languages separately right here. And you're able to find your dual language program and select it. If it's not listed, please use the other language and type in your language. Now, if you have multiple sites, some of you might, we are offering you to add another site. If you select add another site, the application will, instead of ending, it will give you another instance of the same page, except for the information will be blank and you'll be able to enter information about your second site. The form will allow you to enter up to 15 sites. Now, if you don't have another site and you by mistake made this selection, go to the previous page. Scroll down to the bottom and say, I don't want to add another site. And if you click next, It will take you to the certification page where you will check the box where you testify that information is provided true and accurate. And you will be also prompted here with information that if you click mark as complete, this will submit the application. So then you don't have to click this button. It will automatically submit the application. Once you do this, you will not be able to make changes in your application. So if you think you want to take a few days, whatever, until July 21st and think about it, you can just save and continue editing. That way, application will be always open for you. You can go back to previous pages and modify information. But once you hit mark as complete, once you push this button, the application will be locked. You will be able to download it. You will be able to print it, but you won't be able to change it. Now, if there is some mistakes that you made or errors on the submitted application, you would have to contact by this email our team, and they will get in touch with you. We ask you to reference the application ID, RFA number, and the application ID, which each one of you will have your unique application ID and this correspondence, so they can easily identify who that is and find your application. Once you mark as complete, the system will email you notification into your email saying that congratulations, you successfully completed the application. I think this is it. Oh, how do you download the application? So there are at the top right here 3 dots, and you can select download, and it will download as PDF document.
Okay, thanks so much, Roman. I'm gonna take back the screen and get back to our presentation here. Just a moment. Okay, and then Dana, I know you mentioned you might be having some internet connectivity issues. Are you good to go?
I think I'm good to go already. Well, thank you all. So we're going to go ahead and move towards the last part of the presentation, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A session. Keep in mind this presentation is being recorded and will be posted online, and it's going to be posted at the same link where you're finding all of the information, which is on our website under the Preschool Promise section of the website. So one thing for Preschool Promise, so we're really looking for grantees who are willing to go ahead and partner with us to provide a high quality preschool experience to the kiddos across the state. So some important documents are really useful as you're filling out the application or contemplating whether you want to apply to be a Preschool Promise grantee will be the grant manual. We have a grant manual that all of our grantees need to go ahead and follow, which is also on the same link that will be attachment E. And also, as you read through the RFA, there is mention of the Preschool Promise Quality Requirements Playbook. This is a guide that's available to all of our Preschool Promise grantees, and it gives a little bit more information into what are we looking for in our Preschool Promise quality requirements. Like, what does it look like in practice when we're talking about 3 conferences a year, 2 assessments a year, 3 assessments? Like, it's really what does it look like in practice? And then all of our grantees are required to be Spark participants. So you have to participate in Spark. So it also talks about how is that quality requirement connected to Spark. Next slide. And as Brenda already mentioned, once we get all of the applications and they have gone through the screening process, all of the applications are going to be divided into 3 different groups by entity type. So this just shows you who's on group 1, group 2, and group 3. And then there's going to be an evaluation committee for each of those groups that has experience working with these entities, either through technical assistance or support. And it's going to be the same review committee or committees within that group that are going to be reviewing the application. Next slide. Quality evaluation. So a little bit about what we discussed as far as the responsiveness to the RFA. So there is this evaluation, from 1 to 10, and this just outlined whether that answer was fair, adequate, very good, and outstanding. And it gives you a little bit of pieces there of what the reviewer will be looking at when reading your application for what we consider the quality evaluation. Next. And this is just an example on how your application and the RFA connect. So on the application, you have, for example, like question number 3, which is family engagement. And then on section 4.23, it talks about like, what is the reviewer going to be looking at this question? So if we read it here, it says, to what extent does applicant provide examples of practices related to family engagement? So that tells you as the applicant, what is the reviewer going to be looking at when they're reading your answer to that question? All of the questions or on the RFA provide you with this information on section 4.2. It lists all of the questions related to your program, to your fiscal processes, and so on. Next slide. And this is just a quick snapshot on how the questions are broken down. So they're broken down into 2 pieces, which is the program information and then the financial controls and sustainability. And then it just gives you the breakdown of the possible points on each of those questions, making it a total of 100 possible points. Once you make it to this phase of the process, then any application that scores higher at or higher than 60% will move on to the next phase of the scoring, which is what we call the community needs score. So remember, first is your application, how you're answering the questions, and so on. And then if you score high at or higher than 60%, you will move on to the next scoring, which is the community needs score. Next slide. So what does that mean? What is the community needs score? One thing that we are really elevating during this RFA is parent voice, family voice. It's really what are families looking for in Preschool Promise in the community. So through collaboration with their early learning hubs, they engage parents and families and partners within their community, and they provide us information. They provide information to the ELD as far as like what were the geographic locations within their hub region that has some prioritization, as well as the provider types and as far as the language of instruction. So one part of it is like each of your sites that you're applying for, we're going to be asking for this question. It's similar to what Roman just mentioned to you at the end of the application, we're asking for your site information. We're wanting to know, does this site that you have align with some of the priority geographic locations identified by families in your community? What is your provider type and what is your language of instruction? One thing to know is that federally recognized Indian tribes in Oregon do not have, they don't have to meet that community needs score. They're actually, if they apply, as soon as they make it above the 60%, we are intending on awarding their slots. So next slide. So let's go back a little bit more in depth on that community needs evaluation. As I mentioned, there's 3 different things that we are looking at in each of your sites. We're looking for the geographic location. So if your geographic location is in the same area that your hub told us that it was a priority, then you will be given a score of a 1. If you're the provider type that was also, presented by the hubs as a priority provider type, then you'll go ahead and get another point. And then the language of instruction. It's super important that as you're filling out this information, you look at page D, and then you're looking like, does it match? Some of the things with the data that we receive from across the state is that some of the data is by zip code, some of the data is by school district's catchment area. So it's super important that you pay attention to what is the hub saying, that what was that priority based on the feedback that they received from partners and families. Next slide. So let's take a look at an example here of what I'm talking about. So on that attachment, we have, and if we can, the moment there. So so if you look at that attachment D, it's a pretty long document. So what you do is you go and find your hub region, and then you go ahead and take a look at like, what was your geographic location? What's the provider type? So this is an example for Eastern Oregon Early Learning Hub. We have an intent of like awarding at or less than 50 slots for this hub region, and they're telling us like, what is that geographic location the parents are looking for in the provider type and the language of instruction. So you will go in there and submit this information for each of your sites. Next slide. And this is breaking it down a little bit more. So like, for example, if we have a site that's in NISA, that is a certified family child care provider with the primary language of instruction, Spanish, because they put Spanish there as the language of instruction, this site will be given a score of a 3. Let's say that site is in NISA, they're a certified family child care provider, but they have English as the primary language of instruction, then they'll get a 2. And then let's say that we go a little bit further, then they are in NISA, but they're actually, let's just say, for example, a charter school with English as the primary language of instruction, they will be given a score as a 1. And I can see where some people may read that and it's like, well, what about that? What about if I'm not on any of these geographic locations? Should I apply? Absolutely, because as a state, we do have a goal of like doing expansion across the state. So we're just saying like, this is what we're hearing from families, but we also have goals for each of the hub regions to be able to go ahead and do expansion. So this just gives you an example. Let's say that the site is within this hub region, but they're in Losteen, Oregon. That is not mentioned as a geographic location, but they are a certified family child care and they do have Spanish as their language of instruction. They will be given a 2. And then you go into another example. Let's say that they are in Losteen, Oregon. They're a certified family and they have Russian as a language of instruction. Because the hub has also said like, hey, we do have a region where they prefer other languages other than Spanish as a primary language of instruction, that site will be given a 2. So it's like super important that as you guys are filling out the information for each of your sites, you pay attention to this assessment. So then we're going to be able to match and that will determine the score. As far as the slot allocation, once we have all of the scores necessary and everything has been calculated, embedded, then if you want to go ahead and like put some attention to section 4.5.2, which is what we call the community needs evaluation and process. That actually is a very descriptive process of how the division is going to be like awarding now each of the slots and in what order and what priority everything is going to fall into. Next slide. Alrighty, so then we have, and Brenda touched on this, we intend to go ahead and do intent to awards on August the 24th, and there is an appeal process. Afterwards, like depending on the decisions, like everything is published online, but there is a 7 calendar days for any kind of appeal process for us to review. And this is just a quick schedule of what you should be expecting as we move forward with this RFA. Currently, it's June 30th. So today is where we have like our webinars and we're answering questions and going through the process and understanding some of the application elements. And then is everything that we just shared. You have like by July the 11th, we're required to go ahead and post all answers to questions that we've received. Once again, like all questions need to go to that single point of contact on the RFA. So any question that you have, you can go ahead and like email psprfa@ode.oregon.gov, or you can also go ahead and call. And then the application is going to be closing on July 21st at 11:59 p.m. Super important that everything gets submitted by 11:59 p.m. There's no grace period. It's like it has to be there by that time. And then it goes a little bit over that the appeals process. That is a 7 calendar days after the notice of intent to award. Next slide. Alrighty, so now we'll go ahead and open it up for questions, and we can start sharing the screen there.
Yep. So thanks, Dana. I'm gonna just pull up the chat. Thank you all so much for adding your questions, and please feel free to continue. We're gonna take about 10 minutes to get through as many as we can, just to put a time check out there for all of our ELD folks and for those listening. So first, I'm going to clump these two together because they're for existing grantees. So is there a minimum slot amount for existing grantees who want to apply for new slots? And are those grantees applying for their existing slots plus the new ones, or just the ones that they want to add?
Great question. So there is no minimum if you are a current Preschool Promise provider, because we know that maybe you just need a couple more slots in your program. Maybe you need 2 or 10 or a little bit more. So, and you're only applying for those additional slots. For your current awarded slots, it's just a continuation of your program. So you do not need to go ahead and apply. This RFA is only for adding new slots, so expansion, or if you want to become a Preschool Promise grantee for expansion as well. Thank you.
Dana, can you speak? I know it's hard to put this in a nutshell, but the question was, are the 2,516 slots going to be distributed evenly across the state based on population, or how does that distribution look?
Great question. So there was a lot of data that was collected that the 2,516, like each of the hub regions has a target. So going back to that attachment D, it shows you at the very top as far as like what is our plan slot expansion for that specific hub region. So for some hub regions, it looks a little bit bigger than others. So please refer to attachment D.
And then if a program currently, has a strong enrollment, they don't have enough space for, let's say they're a certified family program, they need to apply for a minimum of 6 slots. What if they have children that are already filling those spots? Do they have to be able to serve all 6 children that they are, those spots that they're awarded by the start date? Or can they have children, can they add children as time moves on?
Great. So as far as like the slots that you're applying for, like you're applying to go ahead and serve those kiddos by and be ready by no later than October the 30th for those kiddos. In our previous implementation, we have had some grantees where it's like the family converts to Preschool Promise, and that is totally fine. So you may already have like current children that are attending your program, and they may want to go ahead and become Preschool Promise kiddos, and those will be kiddos that will be given priority, and that's what we consider a conversion. As long as they're eligible, and now we go into kind of like what is the eligibility for families. They have to meet the age eligibility and also the income eligibility for the family to be eligible.
Thanks, Dana. Is there a maximum amount of slots that a program can apply for and be granted?
Great question. So there's minimum requirements, but there is no maximum requirements, as long as if you are license required that you do make your licensing, what you're allowed to go ahead and serve, but there is no maximums.
I'll try and word this, but I think I'm going to generalize it a little bit, if that's okay, for the person who answered it. But if a school-based program or a program is offering a combination of Preschool Promise slots and non-Preschool Promise slots, I'll start with part A. Is that acceptable to do a blended classroom of Preschool Promise and not Preschool Promise students?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of we are truly committed to a mixed delivery model. So we know that all of our grantees, some of them, they have like maybe private pay and Preschool Promise or other publicly funded programs.
Yeah. So the second part of that question is, for example, in a school district, if you had a classroom of 15 children and you had 10 Preschool Promise slots, Could district funding be used to cover the cost of those other 5 children, or would those families have to utilize private pay?
You definitely like blending of funds is grantees can go ahead and blend or braid funds, right? We call it like a blended model or a braided model.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull some ones that are not, it looks like we had a few repeats in there. Okay, so question about the timeline. So receipt, we plan to post the award on, you mentioned August 24th, 2022, and there's a requirement to be able to start services on October 30th, 2022. There's some feelings that this is a little bit of a tight timeline. Is there any, leeway on that start date, or can you tell us more about that for programs that are starting up?
No, great question. Initially, the timeline was by no later than September 30th. So we decided to go ahead and push it to October 30th. So that will be more of that is how it is listed on the RFA. Should anything change with that, then we will go ahead and let like all applicants know. But as of right now, that kiddos, like the program must start no later than October 30th.
Thank you. Yeah, we have some repeats or kind of restated in different ways. So I'm going to kind of move through some of these, and I apologize if I miss your question. Is there any consideration toward age or gender balance in the classroom when making placements of children, especially in the case of 3- and 4-year-old mixed classrooms?
Most of our classrooms are mixed age, so there's not a requirement as far as like the number of children in each of the age groups.
Yeah. And then someone asked, will we be able to access this video later? And I'll just tag on to that, which yes, this video is recorded and we plan to post it in the same place where the application and all the other RFA support materials are located. Roman, I don't know if you can answer this one. It's from someone asking that they don't see a maximum word count. Is there a maximum word count in Surveymonkey for the application?
I will have to look into this. I would never saw any kind of limits that previously there, but I would have to look at it and see what the maximum is.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll store that one away for later. Another question about a center that typically requires children to be fully potty trained or at least very close before enrolling in their preschool program. Would this be a conflict under Preschool Promise guidelines?
Yeah, thank you. Kiddos are not required to be potty trained to be part of Preschool Promise. But definitely as you read through the RFA, like we partner with our child care resource and referral for technical assistance and support. So that's a great resource for grantees to kind of like how do we embed that into the program? But kiddos are not required to be potty trained.
Thanks, Dana. Can you talk about the adult to child ratio expectation in Preschool Promise programs?
Right. So our ratio is 1 to 9. And we do know that with our mixed delivery, like that can sometimes like present some challenges. So, but the Preschool Promise quality ratio is 1 to 9. But we do have, like per rule, there are waivers available, and depending on the reasoning, we may go up to like 1 to 20. Or 1 to 10, not 20. So delete that from the recording there. So it's a 1 to 10. And that will be through a waiver process there. As long as you have to go ahead and stay within, if your license require, once again, within like licensing requirements.
Good clarification. So someone has noticed a piece of the grant manual that talks about attendance expectations, and they notice this, 85% attendance rate. And there's some concern about, how do you control child attendance, especially if there's like a COVID, spike in cases? Can you talk about the attendance expectations?
Great. We are, we know that we're serving families who are in need, right? So we know that sometimes like attendance may present some challenges. As a Preschool Promise grantee, what we expect is we will not, we will expect for our grantees to be working with the family to go ahead and try to reduce barriers and really understand like why they may not have the attendance. So as far as like not meeting the 85%, it's not like it would jeopardize your grant. It's more really towards like, what are we doing to go ahead and connect with the family to go ahead and reduce any barriers or understand why they're not able to go ahead and meet the attendance. And absolutely with that pandemic, we had challenges with attendance left to right. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to do a time check. I see that we have a little over 20 unanswered messages. So just a reminder that we are saving all of these and plan to compile them and post them according to the table listed in the RFA. I'll do just a couple more if we can squeeze them in. So for a program that is continuing, but they want to apply for additional slots, if they're just asking for extra slots, they've already applied in the past, do they need to fill out the RFA again to request additional slots?
Yeah, for current grantees, any additional slots will need to go through the RFA. So even if it's 1, 2, 10, or more slots, you will need to go through the RFA.
Great. Some good questions in here. I'm trying to decide which one to end on because this will probably be our last one. Okay. Let's talk about Spark involvement, Dana, if you can. If a program isn't currently Spark rated, are they still able to apply? Are they still eligible?
Yeah, no, you're still eligible to apply. You will be required to go ahead and participate in Spark. So enrolling and getting that, so definitely connecting with your child care research and referral for any kind of assistance on that, but you are required to enroll.
Okay. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. Just to reiterate, we're saving all the questions in the chat to look at and get back to as soon as we can and post them according to the table in the RFA. Sincerely appreciate your time. If you missed any part of the recording, it will be posted online. And thanks so much for joining. Dana, any closing thoughts before we close out?
Well, we really appreciate you attending. We have a high number of participants, so just please stay in touch by visiting online. And if you have any questions, please, reach out to us by email to the PSP RFA email. Thank you.
Thanks so much.